dress this way? A crazy drag queen, or perhaps you're gay? Is there a point to all these fancy clothes? With all these buckles from your head down to your toes? It's very simple, but I'm just another girl. It's not so easy, but I'm giving it a whirl. Is there something that you're trying to prove? With all the makeup and the way you move, are you looking for some sympathy? No, I'm trying to be the best girl I can be. It's very simple, but I'm just another girl. It's not so easy, but I'm giving it a whirl. Like my martini stride, cosmos I won't deny. Smoke those long cigarettes. Thank God I'm not dead yet. Done all these crazy things, short of a wedding ring. Just love, love, love,
Well, good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Callista Solon, and you're watching nlcTrans. And I am here with my dear friend and co-host, T.a.L.L. Anyway, thanks for joining us again tonight. It's always nice when you come back.
Or when we come back.
Or when we come back. Sorry about last week. I forget exactly what happened last week, but
It was a nice day.
it was probably not my fault somehow. I'm sorry.
Then it was my fault
Anyway, so
by process of elimination.
So yeah, it must be. I can live with that. Anyway, I believe we've got some B-roll for you a little bit later.
18 minutes.
18 minutes. Very cool. And we're going to talk about some other things. And I know Russia is sort of a big topic tonight, because I know I've got a bunch of stuff on Russia, and you've got stuff on Russia.
Well, I just have a little piece, but
Excuse me, just because of the crazy stuff that's going on over there. One thing, though, that I did, I'm not going to go, get into this tonight, but because I couldn't, I was trying to pull up some stuff tonight on HIV and some of the stuff that's going on there. And there's apparently some new vaccine they're working on, I think in Brazil or Colombia or South America somewhere. And I wasn't able to get to pull the stuff up and print it. But I was reading some stuff, and I think it's something that we really should do a more serious show about at some point in the future. Some of the stuff that's going on. I was reading a piece, and they're talking about the projections for HIV and infection rates and stuff, and they were saying that that a time is coming in the not too far distant future where they're expecting that 50% of all LGBT people will be HIV positive by the time they're 50. And it's, that sounds like a very high number, but I think if you look at the general populace, it's probably not that far behind it. It's just sort of crazy, the sort of HIV, and we seem to have forgotten that it exists, and yet the infection rates are extremely high, especially among populations over 50.
Right.
The rates are increasing dramatically. I think because we've gotten better at treating it, it hasn't gone away. But because we've gotten better at treating it, it seems like everybody's sort of forgotten that it exists, and it still exists, and it's very, very bad. And apparently the infection rates are on the rise. So I was kind of looking at some of that stuff. I couldn't pull it up, and we really don't have probably the time for it tonight. But I think at some point in the not too far distant future, we should try to do a show on that, being that it is sort of an important topic and worthy of our time. So anyway, just to give you a little warning there, and some other stuff. I think Renee is going to have a guest for us at some point here in the not too far distant future. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to happen, so anyway, in the meantime, certainly we've got other things to talk about, and I think I believe that we may have an issue with next week. We may not be on next week because I think it wasn't next week that you have a work schedule problem.
Yes.
So that possibly we may not be able to be on that night because of the work schedule problem. So if we're not here, forgive us. It's a scheduling thing. But we're back the week after for sure. And next week I'm not 100% on yet.
And then the week after that, we probably won't be here either.
Oh, right. We're going to be. We have.
Oh no! We'll be here that week. It's the following. Never mind.
Yeah. So
let's just deal with 1 week at a time.
We'll let you know the schedule. But yeah, there is going to be another week coming up when we have a scheduling conflict and we won't be able to be here. So, anyway, Russia, as you all know, the Olympics in Sochi. I think that's right, Sochi. In Russia are coming up, and there's been a whole lot of trouble with that because in Russia they don't like gay people, apparently. The LGBT community is being persecuted in Russia, and so there's always stuff, I say fun, not fun, but interesting stuff going on over there. I was going to read you a little piece here. This I thought was kind of interesting. This is about a Russian TV presenter who got fired because he came out. This was Russian television anchor Anton Krasovsky has been fired from his job after coming out on the air. I'm gay and I'm just the same person as you, my dear audience, as President Putin, as Prime Minister Medvedev, and the deputies of our Duma, he said, according to an interview with snob.ru. He was reportedly fired from KONTR TV, a government-backed cable network that he helped launch, and the footage of his announcement was quickly deleted from their website and YouTube. Krasovsky also spoke to CNN from Lisbon and said he knew he would lose his job for coming out. Somebody should do it, he said. I decided it's time to be open for me. That's it. He told snob.ru that he felt like a hypocrite after covering the so-called gay propaganda law on a show. The meaning of the whole story we are discussing now is that throughout my whole life I've been struggling with myself, Krasovsky said. And this, as you call it, coming out, is just another battle with myself, with my own hypocrisy, my own lies, and my own cowardice. He said after making the announcement at the end of the show, Angry Guys, the audience and the crew applauded. He said he then went into his dressing room and cried for 20 minutes before being fired a few hours later. They immediately blocked all my corporate accounts, my email, literally immediately overnight, Krasovsky said. They deleted not only my face from the website, but also my TV shows as if they'd never really existed. The next day I wrote to the network head that I was totally shocked because it takes them half a day to put up a banner when I ask them to, and here we had such efficiency. One could say they can when they want to. Now they've put everything back, but you couldn't say why, really. Anyway, I thought that was very interesting. Good for him. Very, very gutsy move that cost him his job. But it's interesting what's going on over there, you know, and there's enough of this nonsense going on that people are starting to stand up and say, hey, you know, knock it off. I'm gay.
Which I think can get you arrested and possibly deported.
Yeah. Which I have a follow-up piece as far as the being deported, but you had something that you wanted to talk about.
Oh no! Like I said, it was just a little piece. I guess in this case, complimentary from the Huffington Post in the latest chapter of Russia's continuing saga of homophobic legislation and anti-LGBT violence. Deputy General Director of Russian State Television and Radio Broadcasting Company, Dmitry Kisilev, speaking on Rosoya 1, a state-owned news network, said that, quote, I think that just imposing fines on gays for homosexual propaganda is not enough. They should be banned from donating blood and sperm. and their hearts, in case of an automobile accident, should be buried in the ground or burned as unsuitable for the continuation of life.
Wow. That's amazing.
Statements were met with resounding applause from the audience.
Wow. Unbelievable. Yeah. Okay. A little bit of hatred there, maybe. That's amazing.
So yes, if they, well, I mean, as you probably get to it too, is any sort of anything they deem as homosexual propaganda, which here in the States, a lot of conservatives would just say, the culture war, the homosexual propaganda, the homosexual agenda.
We're taking over.
Yeah, well, it'd be great if we were actually organized enough to have an agenda, but
Yeah, I know. That's great.
I must have not gotten that handout.
Bury or burn their hearts.
Bury or burn their hearts, because homosexuals, anyone, actually, and it's not just homosexuals, for anyone who's sympathetic, anyone who's spreading propaganda among teenagers,
Wow.
should, in the case of an automobile accident, have their hearts buried in the ground or burned, as donating the heart to somebody who needs a heart transplant
Would make them gay.
would unfortunately,
Yeah. No doubt about
a
it.
gay heart is. No, the funny part is 100 years ago, a gay heart was something people would strive for.
Yes.
A light heart. But yeah, it's not suitable for the continuation of life.
It's amazing.
If you have sympathy for the plight of downtrodden LGBT folks in Russia under the weight of the homophobic violence, then your heart is not suitable for the continuation of life.
Well, I guess I will keep my heart then. Thank you very much. Yeah. It's you know, it's hard to believe, but there you go. You wonder where some of that stuff comes from. It's like, what is in your heart that you would say a thing like that?
Status quo and fear.
Yeah. Anyway, there was a couple of things here I had on the Olympics, the Sochi Olympics.
There's a number of high-profile LGBT athletes that I've seen come out and say that they're willing to get arrested.
Yeah.
They're willing to go to Russia
There's,
as out gay, lesbian athletes, and they're willing to get arrested under the scrutiny of the public, of the world media.
Yes. I get that.
I'm gay, I'm an athlete, I'm in Russia, come and get me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so the International Olympic Committee has apparently come out and said, or they have forbidden athletes to speak against Russian anti-gay laws. Imagine that. The International Olympic Committee says it plans to stop any athlete from showing support for LGBT Russians at the Sochi Winter Games, reports Gay Star News. However, the IOC claims that it isn't due to Russia's recently passed anti-gay laws banning so-called homosexual propaganda, but an enforcement of the rules that govern the Olympics. Rule 50 of the IOC's charter states, no kind of demonstration or political, religious, or racial propaganda is permitted in any Olympic sites, venues, or other areas. The IOC has a clear rule laid out in the Olympic Charter, which states that the venues of the Olympic Games are not a place for proactive political or religious demonstration, an IOC spokeswoman told Gay Star News. This rule has been in place for many years and applied when necessary. According to the cited rule, athletes found in violation would face disqualification or withdrawal of the accreditation of the person concerned. And you know what? I get that. Rules are rules.
And it makes some sense in the historical context of amateur sport and sport.
It just sort of feels wrong somehow, but I get it. You know, rules are rules.
Well, and you know, you really don't want to tune into the Olympics to watch sport and
I
have
know.
people making political statements, even if
agree.
in this case they're in our favor.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. However, it's just sort of,
Reminding the athletes of the rule that they already agreed to abide by.
yeah, it just feels, I don't know. It doesn't feel quite right to me, but okay. Anyway, here's another one. Russia proposes don't ask, don't tell Olympics. Responding to the International Olympic Committee's request for clarification about how Russia's anti-LGBT laws will affect Olympic athletes at the Winter Games, the Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs today issued a statement confirming that LGBT athletes and spectators will be safe as long as they don't discuss or disclose their orientation.
In other words, you're not LGBT while you're there.
Right. The Interior Ministry, which runs the nation's police force, issued the brief statement Monday, according to Russia's news outlet RIA Novosti. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but the law enforcement agencies can have no qualms with people who harbor a non-traditional sexual orientation and do not commit such acts, do not conduct any kind of provocation, and take part in the Olympics peacefully, said the statement. Anyway, so that's Yahoo. Don't ask, don't tell Olympics. Wow. I'm not gonna go through this whole thing. It's sort of more of the same. But yeah, don't ask, don't tell, and you'll be okay.
So one has to wonder then if someone is already an out athlete or an out spectator, and they go to Russia to participate in or support the Olympics, then is Russia really just going to play dumb?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We will see.
And then will they start arresting international citizens who go, oh yeah, I'm gay. Oh, well then I'm getting arrested.
Yeah. We'll see.
Certainly keeps the spirit of the Olympic Games as I recall them.
Yeah.
Sarcasm.
I think they should all be nude anyway. I mean, the original Olympics were.
Yes, they were.
I think we should go back to
Nude Olympics.
nude Olympics. Not that that has anything to do with being gay or not being gay.
I'm sure somewhere along the Appalachian Trail there is nude javelin throwing.
Anyway, all right, I'm sorry.
So I had a couple of notices, whatever these are.
Okay.
First of all, OutCT had a
Pretty beach day.
They had a pretty big beach day this past Sunday.
Yeah.
From what I hear, it was a pretty big success. There were a lot of people that showed up, so thank you all for coming out. Hopefully, it at the very least, I hope the New London County GLBTQIA plus SS gender and sexual minority communities got to get together and meet each other.
Yeah.
The next, I think I have these in the wrong order here. Yes, the next big thing that's planned is an international queer shorts program. Films about gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer people from around the world will be held on Saturday, August 24th from 2 to 4:30 p.m. at the Expressions Cultural Center on Bank Street. The admission is $10 and it's for 17 and older only. Following the program, there'll be a discussion with Margaret Breen, Professor of English and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies at the University of Connecticut. And you can go to outct.org to see the shorts that they'll be showing. So I missed this. That's Saturday, August 24th from 2 to 4:30 at the Expressions Cultural Center on Bank Street. And then next month, on Saturday, September 21st, and we know Leo's working hard on this one,
Yeah.
OutCT will be putting on a New London scavenger hunt.
Yeah. Leo loves that kind of stuff.
He loves his geocaching.
Yeah.
New London Scavenger Hunt, Saturday, September 21st. Team up and follow the clues through downtown New London as you seek, hunt, photograph, and complete challenges to win prizes. Celebrate the amazing race with a party at the Brass Rail. So this will have you running around New London to complete little tasks, much like the show The Amazing Race. And it will end up at the Brass Rail, where they're expecting to have a buffet and obviously a big old party.
Yeah.
Teams consist of between 2 to 4 people. You must be at least 18 years old to participate, and in large part, that's because of Brass Rail.
Right, sure.
Photo IDs will be required for all participants at check-in. The registration fee includes the team fee, 1 drink ticket for each participant on the team at the after party, and access to the buffet at the after party. So the cost for registering a team is $40 and $50 at the day of the event. So if you don't pre-register, it's going to be $10 more. So if you figure if teams are 2 to 4 people, if you have 4 people on your team, it's $10 per person to participate in the event, get a drink and a buffet at O'Neill's afterwards.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
Teams that successfully complete the hunt will each receive a gift bag for participating in the hunt. And then there's the after party at O'Neill's Brass Rail from 2:30 until whenever. $2 cover charge for non-participants in the scavenger hunt. And they expect to have a variety of very interesting entertainment that night, which I will leave to your imagination rather than read and get in trouble.
Okay.
That's Saturday, September 21st, and again, you can go to outct.org to get more information.
Yeah.
Click on the cultural events, and you'll see the scavenger hunt and the international film shorts.
Very cool. So that should be fun. Anyway, I was going to throw one more thing at you here that
Okay.
sort of has to do with the stuff going on in Russia.
Oh.
Just because there was so much of it. But this is actually sort of not really about Russia. It's about Canada. This. Well, yeah.
I know it's easy to get the two confused.
Yeah. No. Bear with me. Bear with me here. This was some
Polar bear with you?
Yeah, exactly. This is good for the Canadians. Canada will favor refugee claims from LGBT Russians. LGBT Russians hoping to escape persecution in their country can seek asylum in Canada, reports the Globe and Mail. Chris Alexander, Canada's immigration minister, said Monday that LGBT people who wish to flee persecution in Russia would have their asylum claim favorably reviewed by the country's refugee board. Refugee claims related to this particular issue will, of course, be looked at very seriously by our very generous system. Alexander told the Globe and Mail, adding that Russia was restricting fundamental rights of LGBT people with the country's newly passed gay propaganda law. Canada accepts the claims of LGBT refugees in the same manner as those filed by other persecuted groups, such as religious or ethnic minorities, because they face persecution from both other citizens and their government, which also does not offer them protection. Though Canada's Immigration and Refugee Board does not currently track the number of asylum claims based on persecution due to sexual orientation, officials say roughly half of the Russians who seek asylum in Canada each year, between 140 and 225 people, are accepted. Under Russia's new anti-gay legislation, individuals who break the law by holding LGBT pride events or providing information to minors about LGBT issues would face fines of up to 5,000 rubles, with foreigners facing a jail sentence of 15 days and deportation. Companies and media organizations could be fined up to 1 million rubles and would face suspension of their activities for up to 90 days. Additionally, a well-known group of Russian neo-Nazis has been luring gay teens in the a country with personal ads on gay dating websites, then beating them, humiliating them, and forcing them to come out on video. Russian authorities have either ignored or condoned the anti-gay violence. Imagine that.
Well,
That's
when you culturally deem it to be that bad a thing,
yeah. It's okay for it's okay. Go ahead and we'll let the neo-Nazis have them. Yeah, who?
well, you know, from that, I would say, twisted perspective, they're helping to rout out an evil in society.
Yeah.
But what you're forgetting is that regardless of whether you like someone or not, whether you agree with them or not, whether you think they're an evil in society or not, there's still basic human rights and dignity that are supposed to be observed.
Yeah. And so anyway, good for the Canadians.
Yeah.
That's very nice to hear.
Quite progressive of them to,
sort of like,
to
okay,
recognize the persecution.
Russia's going to persecute you. Come on over here. There you go. Good for them. So I thought that was nice.
Yeah. Probably have a couple more things, but I think we'll go to the video first.
Yeah.
So the video roll we have today is our two short TED Talks, a total of about, I think, 16, 17 minutes. They don't really have any bearing on anything we've been talking about. I just thought they were kind of cool. The first one is designer Bastian Schaefer shows off a speculative design for the future of jet planes.
Cool.
With a skeleton inspired by strong, flexible, natural forms and by the needs of the world's growing population. Imagine an airplane that's full of light and space built up from generative parts in a 3D printer. He works with a team of designers at Airbus, imagining a high-concept future of the jet airplane. The second one, that's about a 6-minute video. The second one is a guy by the name of Beardy Man.
Beardy Man.
Beardy Man.
Okay.
The, quote, ruler of beats and destroyer of dance floors. He's developed a real-time music production system that places live looping at the center of his new musical paradigm. Frustrated by not being able to sing two notes at the same time, he built a machine that allows him to create loops and layers from the sounds he makes with his own voice. And so this is really the reason why it was so fascinating is most people have heard of beatboxing kind of thing, but this guy takes it to a whole new level where he may not be able to sing two notes, but he can pretty much make any sound you can imagine. And when you first see him pull some of it, you'll think that we're playing with the tape. But
cool.
So we'll go to the video, and then we'll come back in about 18 minutes. 17 minutes.
What do we know about the future? Difficult question, simple answer, nothing. We cannot predict the future. We only can create a vision of the future, how it might be. A vision which reveals disruptive ideas, which is inspiring, and this is the most important reason which breaks the chains of common thinking. There are a lot of people who created their own vision about the future. For instance, this vision here from the early 20th century. It says here that this is the ocean plane of the future. It takes only 1.5 days to cross the Atlantic Ocean. Today, we know that this future vision didn't come true. So this is our largest airplane, which we have at Airbus. This is the A380, and it's quite huge. So a lot of people fit in there, and it's technically completely different than the vision I've shown to you. I'm working in a team with Airbus, and we have created our vision about a more sustainable future of aviation. So sustainability is quite important for us, which should incorporate social but as well as environmental and economic values. So we have created a very disruptive structure which mimics the design of a bone or a skeleton which occurs in nature. So that's why it looks maybe a little bit weird, especially to the people who deal with structures in general. But at least it's just a kind of artwork to explore our ideas about a different future. What are the main customers of the future? So we have the old, we have the youngs, we have the uprising power of women. And there's one mega trend which affects all of us. These are the future anthropometrics. So our children are getting larger, but at the same time we are growing into different directions. So what we need is space inside the aircraft, inside a very dense area. These people have different needs. So we see a clear need of active health promotion, especially in the case of the old people. We want to be treated as individuals. We like to be productive throughout the entire travel chain. And what we are doing in the future is we want to use the latest man-machine interface. And we want to integrate this and show this in one product. So we combined these needs with technology themes. So, for instance, we're asking ourselves, how can we create more light? How can we bring more natural light into the airplane? So this airplane has no windows anymore, for example. What about the data and communication software which we need in the future? My belief is that the airplane of the future will get its own consciousness. It will be more like a living organism than just a collection of very complex technology. This will be very different in the future. It will communicate directly with the passenger and its environment. And then we are talking also about materials, synthetic biology, for example. And my belief is that we will get more and more new materials which we can put into structure later on, because structure is one of the key issues in aircraft design. So let's compare the old world with the new world. I just want to show you here what we are doing today. So this is a bracket of an A380 crew rest compartment. It takes a lot of weight and it follows the classical design rules. This here is an equal bracket for the same purpose. It follows the design of a bone. The design process is completely different. At the one hand, we have 1.2 kilos, and at the other hand, 0.6 kilos. So this technology, 3D printing, and new design rules really help us to reduce the weight, which is the biggest issue in aircraft design, because it's directly linked to greenhouse gas emissions. Push this idea a little bit forward. So how does nature build its components and structures? So nature is very clever. It puts all the informations into these small building blocks, which we call DNA. And nature builds large skeletons out of it. So we see a bottom-up approach here, because all the informations, as I said, are inside the DNA. And this is combined with a top-down approach, because what we are doing in our daily life is we train our muscles, we train our skeleton, and it's getting stronger. And the same approach can be applied to technology as well. So our building block is carbon nanotubes, for example, to create a large rivetless skeleton in the end of the day. How this looks in particular, you can show it here. So imagine you have carbon nanotubes growing inside a 3D printer, and they're embedded inside a matrix of plastic and follow the forces which occur in your component. And you've got trillions of them. So you really align them to woods. And you take these woods and make morphological optimization. So you make structures, substructures, which allows you to transmit electrical energy or data. And now we take this material, combine this with a top-down approach, and build bigger and bigger components. So how does the airplane of the future might look like? So we have very different seats which adapt to the shape of the future passenger with a different anthropometrics. We have social areas inside the aircraft which might turn into a place where you can play virtual golf. And finally, this bionic structure, which is covered by a transparent biopolymer membrane, will really change radically how we look at aircrafts in the future. So as Jason Silver said, if we can imagine it, why not doing so? See you in the future. Thank you.
I'd like you all to ask yourselves a question which you may never have asked yourselves before. What is possible with the human voice? Yeah? What is possible with the human voice? Yeah. It was coming straight for me. I had to. It was, yeah. As you can probably well imagine, I was a strange child. Because the thing is, I was constantly trying to extend my repertoire of noises to be the very maximum that it could be. I was constantly experimenting with these noises. And I'm still on that mission. I'm still trying to find every noise that I can possibly make. And the thing is, I'm a bit older and wiser now, and I know that there's some noises I'll never be able to make because I'm hemmed in by my physical body. There's things it can't do, and there's things that no one's voice can do. For example, no one can do 2 notes at the same time. You can do 2-tone singing, which monks can do, which is like... but that's cheating. And it hurts your throat. So there's things you can't do. And these limitations on the human voice have always really annoyed me. Because beatbox is the best way of getting musical ideas out of your head and into the world. But they're sketches at best, which is what's annoyed me. If only there was a way for these ideas to come out unimpeded by the restrictions which my body gives it. So I've been working with these guys, and we've made a machine. We've made a system which is basically a live production machine, a real-time music production machine. And it enables me to, using nothing but my voice, create music in real time as I hear it in my head, unimpeded by any physical restrictions that my body might place on me. And I'm going to show you what it can do. And before I start making noises with it and using it to manipulate my voice, I want to reiterate that everything that you're about to hear is being made by my voice. This system has... Thank you, beautiful assistant. This system has no sounds in it itself until I start putting sound in it. So there's no pre-recorded samples of any kind. So once this thing really gets going and it really starts to mangle the audio I'm putting into it, it becomes not obvious that it is the human voice, but it is. So I'm going to take you through it bit by bit and start nice and simple. So the polyphony problem. I've only got one voice. How do I get around the problem of really wanting to have as many different voices going on at the same time? The simplest way to do it is something like this. By dancing. That's like this. Thanks. So that's probably the easiest way. But if you want to do something a little bit more immediate, something that you can't achieve with live looping, there's other ways to layer your voice up. There's things like pitch shifting, which are awesome. And I'm going to show you now what that sounds like. So I'm going to start another beat for you like this. There's always got to be a bit of a dance at the start because it's just fun. So you can clap along if you want. You don't have to, it's fine. Check it out. I'm going to lay down a bass sound now. now a rockabilly guitar. Which is nice. But what if I want to make, say, thanks. What if I want to make, say, a rock organ? Is that possible? Yes, it is. By recording myself like this. And now I have that. I have that recorded. Assign it to a keyboard. So that's cool. But what if I wanted to sound like the whole of Pink Floyd? Impossible, you say? No. It is possible, and you can do it very simply using this machine. It's really fantastic. Check it out. So every noise you can hear there is my voice. I didn't just trigger something which sounds like that. There's no samples, there's no synthesizers. That is literally all my voice being manipulated. And when you get to that point, you have to ask, don't you? What's the point? Why do this? Because it's cheaper than hiring the whole of Pink Floyd, I suppose, is the easy answer. But in actual fact, I haven't made this machine so that I can emulate things that already exist. I've made this so that I can make any noise that I can imagine. So with your permission, I'm going to do some things that are in my mind, and I hope you enjoy them, because they're rather unusual, especially when you're doing things which are as unusual as this. It can be hard to believe that it is all my voice, you see. It can be hard to believe that all my voice, you see. It's hard to believe like this. So, loosely defined, that is what's possible with the human voice. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that. I did. Beardy Man, that was very entertaining.
Well, and we've featured a few musical selections from various different places in the past, and I always like to try and bring examples of where technology and the human condition come together.
Yeah.
And certainly that was one where a man with a particular talent to create sounds with his own voice has found a way to use technology to take what is human and stretch it past almost recognition.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very, very cool.
But
yeah, fun stuff.
technology so often gets labeled as the demon in the destruction of our culture and such, but I like to remind that it just is. It's not good or bad. It's sort of how it gets used. And while certainly these things can destroy relationships, destroy families, destroy all kinds of
but they are pretty evil, aren't they?
no, they just are.
I know.
And certainly the Bastian Schaefer in the first video.
Very cute. Yes, it was very. Okay,
but there are a lot of things going on in the world of science and engineering with material sciences and structures, and the example that he gave with using 3D printing and a more organic approach to construction versus the traditional milling of metal and the traditional ribbing and supports that go into making a structurally sound piece. And
sort of the idea of growing structures is
very
cool.
Between carbon nanotubes and graphene sheets, there's a lot going on in general structure, and what that could mean for us to in 50 or 100 years or. Yeah, that airplane doesn't have a launch date of like 2020.
No. But yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah,
some of the technology is very cool.
As you hear stories or read in the news about more, wearable computing, and we've got Google Glass coming out and possibly the iWatch and all kinds of things, and now you think that maybe your seat is connected, and when you sit down, it picks up all kinds of information from you, from your biology, from your physical presence, and from the connectedness of whatever you have on you to interconnect you while you're there.
Right, and if it doesn't like you, it eats you.
It eats you. All right.
It's very cool.
That's my cue that I'm going on too long with it.
I'm teasing. It's very cool, though. It really is. The technology is very, very cool. And, it's amazing what happens if you give people a chance to actually do some of this stuff. And that's it's sort of the profits and having to spend your time,
worrying about shareholders. Yeah, take the profit motive out for a little bit. Let people stretch their imaginations and see what's possible with what we already know how to do.
Yeah. And cool things happen.
And cool things can happen.
But very, very cool stuff. Thank you.
But the first time I saw the video and he starts to rewind himself, you swear that the tape is stuck.
Yeah. Pretty neat.
So I guess in the last few minutes, if you had something, or
I didn't, but
okay.
But I'll be happy to talk about whatever you like. Did you have something that you want to talk about?
This was the Bradley Manning story.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Bradley Manning, if you haven't been keeping up with the news, was a soldier who leaked some classified information to WikiLeaks, and he's now undergoing court-martial for it. The news that came out today is effectively that he apologized. He said he was sorry that his actions hurt the country. He's showing remorse for what he did. He faces up to 90 years in prison for leaking the information while working as an intelligence analyst in Iraq in 2010. He admitted that he understood what he was doing and the decisions he made. However, he didn't believe at the time that leaking the information would cause any harm. The interesting part is what his defense attorneys are have been bringing to the stand, which is to try and try and mitigate potentially some of the 90-year sentence by
Sure.
by demonstrating that Bradley Manning was under an inordinate amount of stress, and that he was in a position in Iraq where he had access to data, that his superiors knew that he wasn't probably as stable as he should be for being there, and so that there are mitigating circumstances that would warrant a smaller sentence than the maximum 90 years. And one of those mitigating factors is his struggle with his gender identity. There's a whole story here of him coming out to one of his captains, sending a photo of him wearing a long blonde wig and lipstick, attached to the letter entitled "My Problem," working with a military psychiatrist to try and figure out how to deal with what he was feeling. And he said, and this is where actually it gets sort of relevant, now I've gone and lost it. Well, anyway, he decided to go into the military and go into Iraq, figuring that a hyper-masculine environment would help cure him of his feelings.
Well, yeah, that sounds very familiar.
That sounds very familiar to a lot of the stories. However, when they've actually analyzed him for trial, spent 21 hours interviewing Manning at Fort Leavenworth. He testified, the psychiatrist testified, that Manning's gender identity disorder, combined with narcissistic personality traits, post-adolescent idealism, and lack of any friends in Iraq, caused him to reasonably conclude that he could change the world by leaking classified information.
Wow.
He became very enthralled with the idea that the things he was finding were injustices, and he had the moral need to right them. Wow. So, yeah, it's not so much the defense that I'm trans and that's what made me do it, so much as it was that being trans, trying to get rid of the dysphoria by going into a hyper-masculine environment, confiding in his superiors that he was having trouble adapting. And if this Navy captain is right, the gender identity combined with narcissistic personality traits, post-adolescent idealism, and no actual support structure in this hyper-masculine environment in the middle of Iraq, surrounded by classified data, he made some bad decisions.
Yeah. Well, that's a new one. It's interesting.
But regardless of the defense and what he actually did, we're certainly familiar with the idea of going into a hypermasculine environment to try and hide who you are, hoping it'll cure you, and finding out that the dysphoria never really goes away. It just creates stress.
Yeah.
And in fact, by the definition of the DSM, so much stress that you can't function in daily life.
Yeah. Anyway, that's very interesting, and we are out of time. On that note, so we have to go, and we may or may not be here next week. Not sure yet. That will depend on your work schedule. But hopefully we'll see you next week, and if we don't, we'll see you the week after. So
you can watch our rerun.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.